Hello again, everyone. Welcome to session 2 of this afternoon's technical stream. Our next presentation is WebAuthn as a mainstream developer tool, and our presenter is Vittorio Bertocci, who is the principal architect from Auth0. Vittorio.
Thank you, David. And I assume you can hear me well with my mouse, right? Buongiorno, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming here and spending the next 20 minutes thinking about how we can somehow try to get WebAuthn finally mainstream for developers and, of course, for users. Otherwise, no fun. My name is Vittorio Bertocci. I work as an architect in Auth0. So we got bought, so I'm both. It's both Auth0 and Okta. And if you can't stand hippies with Italian accent, here there's what you need to know from what this session is going to be about. We, collective, royal, we want WebAuthn to succeed and to be used in the market and similar. And I assume that's true for the entire room, but in particular, I'm talking about my company, Auth0. And although we share the passion for a word without passwords and like this beautiful promised land, we also want to be pragmatic about it. I'm very glad that in today's keynotes you heard a nice injection of reality from Andrew. It's going to take some realism to actually make this adoption happen. And that's what we are trying to bring into the equation. And we believe that there are low-hanging fruits, small things we can do that seem small for us, but that can make a measurable difference in how people will adopt this thing. Do I have a timer that tells me when I spoke too much? I didn't. OK, I will probably. Can you do like a gesture when it's 5 minutes? OK, thank you. Otherwise, I blah, blah, blah. All right, so how are we going to structure this? I'm going first to tell you some sources of information that we pursued to understand better how we can be pragmatic about WebAuthn. So we looked at adoption, we looked at inhibitors, we looked at reasons, and we looked at state of the art. So I'm going to just give you a very short wrap-up of that. And then I'm going to talk about a very concrete approach that we are pursuing, which is already paying a lot of adoption dividends. I have to be honest with you. When I submitted this talk, many months ago, I had like very lofty ambitions to channel what is the classic DNA of Auth0, which is extensibility and really developer-centric complete customization, which is actually possible with our platform, but looking at the data and similar and considering that I promised something about getting mainstream, I decided to instead go far more fundamental and make interventions that, although are less fancy from a technological perspective, actually do make a difference. OK. I see no one leaving the room in a panic, so I assume that you are fine with the plan. So let's start by looking at some adoption data. And of course, the most direct way for us to do it is to look at our own backyard. And so we looked in the last year how people used our dashboard, like our management dashboard for manipulating tenants, doing apps, and similar, and see what methods people used for multi-factor authentication. And as you can see, that up until May, it was a bit of like nothing changed all that much. Sure, like a push notification SMS kind of like flipped at a certain point, but it's kind of like a war between poors, something we say in Italy. Like nothing particularly of effect. And also here, note its percentage. So this doesn't tell you how many users were in there. And I can tell you that they didn't grow all that much, which is why I just did this in percentage rather than in trend. And then, and actually, we were supporting already WebAuthn, but as you can see, nothing there. And then in June, we rolled out a new experience and the ability to use WebAuthn for our dashboard. And as you can see, suddenly, the platform authenticator blossomed. And we started getting some adoption in there. So let me zoom on the last 4 months. And here you can see that there is a steady growth of the platform authenticators, basically taking over the one-time password. And it might look like in September there was no growth. That's because I got the data before the end of the month, because I was under the illusion that I could actually give my deck on time for the deadline. And so I stopped collecting data, but then, of course, I never gave it to them. I'm presenting from my own machine. Don't do like these kids, because they get really upset. No, that's not true. They are so patient with me. And one really interesting thing that you can see is, like, first, that people really, really wanted to use it, because we went literally from nothing to 23%, which is very good. And the other thing that you can see is that the keys, the roaming authenticators, sure, they have like very little steady up, but still they are dominated by the platform authenticator, which will become interesting in a short. So takeaways. One is, actually, one thing that I should mention is that, once again, this is a change in percentage. The trend in number of users actually using MFA didn't change. It's just a slowly steady growth, but it's nothing like the kind of adoption that we want, which instead, toward the end, I'll show you that we did achieve. So the takeaways for these are that developers do care about WebAuthn. All the people using our portal are pretty much developers. But they don't care in the measure that, as practitioners of this space, we would like. And the other is that, you see it's a leitmotif, platform authenticators are way more popular than roaming. So the other thing we did was we looked at what is already out there, what others in this space are offering to their users. And I'm not going to name anyone, because it would not be fair, because we are all working on this stuff, and also I just want to be free to point out some of the things that we believed weren't working all that well. And I don't want these to be perceived as a slight. So if you, by any chance, you think that you see your product there, please don't think that. I'm not slicing anyone. So one thing that we observed is that in most cases, the platforms offer roaming and security keys as exactly the same option. They just say, would you like to use a security key? And this might be a bit skewed toward administrators or DevOps or people that do these as a profession. And so you can expect them to have, that's my real keyring, a YubiKey that comes with you at all times, and you can use with your phone and with your devices and similar. So you can expect that. But for the vast majority of muggles, like the people that don't work in our space, keys are kind of like, no, that's not what I have. When you say key, they don't hear Face ID. They don't hear Windows Hello. They don't hear Touch ID. They hear key. And so if you ask them to click on the key, then they might not, even if they have the capability of doing so. The other thing is that, well, and this one is basically the same point. Like if you go in most of not just identity providers and identity vendors, but also apps, websites that accept WebAuthn, very often you'll find the option key, basically. And the other is that still today, for the vast majority of the things that we examined, what really happens is that WebAuthn isn't really something for the user. It's something that the user can enable if they switch in management mode. If they, from using their app, they actually put their management hat and then go in their own application settings, their account settings, and in there, they have the option to enable WebAuthn. And it's super hard. So here there is like a generalized flow, which represents one flow that exists today in the market, in which if someone wants to enable signing in using WebAuthn, they have to log in with whatever they have. I said username and password because it's just the, by far, most common approach that we have in there. You have to go into the account settings. Within the settings, you can check lots of things, and security is just one of them. Once you get in security and you finally have all the options, now there will be a generalized affordance, which tells you, would you like to sign in some different way? And then in there, you once again will have the key, the famous key, which represents both keys and stuff that has nothing to do with keys in the head of your user. And then finally, you can tell the browser, yeah, I want to use my platform authenticator, and now you enabled it. It's kind of like, you should like send them like a mountain bike if they manage to do this, because it's really hard. It's actually it's surprising that people do adopt WebAuthn using these. So this is what we observed in the market. And in terms of key takeaways, we believe that the biggest insight is don't treat both for developers in the options for developers and end users in the options in which end user can opt in, the keys and platform authenticator as the same thing. Because from the usability perspective, it proved to be not very effective. The other is that there is room for improvement. Like the approach that we have today seems to be geared toward administrators and DevOps and similar, and it doesn't seem to be very end-user friendly, which we believe that can be improved. Then, given that we want to focus clearly on platform authenticators, then we double-clicked on what people think about biometric, and then we did a survey. And I think that the most interesting question we asked was how important are each of the following factors in deciding when to use biometric authentication? And as people who want to get to a word with no passwords, of course, we would have wanted people to say fewer passwords. But we have to be pragmatic. That's not the top concern that people gave. It was actually the dead last. The top one was security, followed by convenience, followed by smaller stuff, and then finally there was fewer passwords. Those are the things that move people, their priorities. We might discuss that, yeah, they don't know, we just need to do better user education and similar, but I suggest that, sure, we can improve their awareness and do more education, and we should, but at the same time, those are also legitimate reasons for moving toward WebAuthn, and we should harness those. We should actually take advantage that people want to do this to promote adoption. And of course, I stole all my thunder already, but just to give you a feeling, added security was the most important, so a combination of very important and extremely important topped everyone else. And the convenience, I really don't know why I spent the time doing the animation when I just went through it, but whatever. Sunken costs. Convenience, again, very, very important, extremely important, somewhat important, very large, and surprisingly, fewer passwords. It's not like people don't care, but well, did I do something involuntarily funny?
All the numbers look the same.
Oh, okay, great. They are all real numbers, all of them, if you ever seen the TED Talk. Yeah, no, they all start with 3, but they are not the same. Also, if you sum them, you'll see that sometimes, like very important, extremely important, are also bigger, smaller. But good observation, sir. They all start with 3. So that established, those are motivators, as in like, why would people want to do this? But in terms of inhibitors, what are things that instead stop people from using it? And this is also interesting because it is actionable. The large part of people, like the largest slice of a pie of people concerned about biometrics are people worried that they will be locked out. This biometric stuff remains somewhat mysterious for a lot of people. I don't know if you have non-techies in your life. That's the case. And others, like, are the usual things, are people worried about biometric data being used against them? Okay. But in general, like, the top concern is being locked out. Or like being able to recover accounts, also another problem. So in general, people fear being cut out from their sources. So more takeaways to pile up on our list. Total password elimination is not a goal for the people that we surveyed today. Eventually, it might become so, and if we make WebAuthn more popular and similar, we'll reduce the distance and we'll finally get there. But it looks like we might need some stepping stones still before being able to convince people that jumping in the water is warm. And the other is that the fear of being locked out is another significant blocker. OK, so what do we do with all those insights? We just took those as constraints in the design of our features. And so we said, OK, let's separate platform authenticators and keys in terms of features, and let's see what happens. And let's focus on the platform authenticators because they seem to be for the end users, but even for the people that manage our tenants, the most popular option. Never mind about this one. And then, OK, we want to get to passwordless, but let's build stepping stones toward it. And in particular, leverage what's already in place, which often works. So enable people to start from what we have. Don't ask them to throw anything away. And help them through the fear of being locked out. Give them a very clear way out. Even if, as security people, we balk and say, come on, you added WebAuthn, why do you still keep this less secure thing? Keep it for the moment. Give them some time to get used to this thing and see that it works and that there are viable alternatives, and then they'll be ready to drop passwords as well. And here, it's more of an idea. This doesn't come directly from the insights, but I mentioned earlier that most of the options that we have seen today in the market for end users to enable WebAuthn is to go in some management place. What if we inline this? What if we give it to the developer the ability to say, you know what? If you see, browser, that the device of my user is capable of platform authenticator activity, suggest it. Suggest it proactively and let them select it without having them to search for this. Just give it to them, and let's see what happens. And basically, what we want to get to is this. We want to go from many steps that are not very discoverable to just 3 short steps, as in sign in with what you already have. If we find that you are capable, offer you the possibility to enroll. And once you enrolled, ta-da, once you come from this device, you'll just keep coming using Platform Authenticator. And now, unfortunately, I have to do a demo. I say unfortunately because I hate doing demos. I was used to really like it when I was young and worked as a dev advocate. And then as I get old and I know how many things can go wrong with a demo for reasons that are completely unrelated, but still the perception is super bad. So I hate it. But I'm going to do it anyway because I really want to make my point. So what you see here is the easiest, close to the easiest possible OpenID Connect application. It's just Node.js, and it basically says, I am a Node.js app. I want to listen to this port. I'm going to use the middleware that does OpenID Connect. And it's just going to force every attempt to get to this application to authenticate first. And it's just going to show one, thank you. It's just going to show one claim. I thought you had a question. So, what? Instead of 5 minutes. Thank you. OK, but in order to run it, given that we are good citizens of the net, we want to use HTTPS. And so I need to run a reverse proxy. See? If I would have forgotten it, I would have been in trouble. Now, if I go in my like this one, dashboard won't explain much. Let's just say that this is your control plane from where you decide how you run your applications. Here, we offer one option, which we call the authentication profile, which, as you can see, doesn't talk about keys, doesn't talk about authenticators. Sure, if you want, you can click on the documentation. You'll find all that information. It's not a secret. It's just that you don't need it for making a decision here. Here, I'm a developer, and you say, you know what? Today, I'm using username and password everywhere, username and password or whatever other stuff I want to use, social and similar. Instead, how about I just enable, I want to use identifier first and biometrics. So that means if the device is capable of biometrics, please prompt the user if they want to enroll. And as you can see in here, we show you the various flows, as in I can stick to using my username and password if I choose not to. I can add MFA if I want to. I can roll to the biometrics, and then my sign-in flow will be very short. So as a developer, I know what's going to happen if a demo works. So I do this, then given that I selected it, I need to come here and save. Another thing I could have forgotten that would have completely ruined the demo. And then once I'm here, I'm just going to run my fantastic debugger. It's running. And so now let me just open another tab and go to HTTPS. Did any URL very embarrassing appeared? Is this being recorded? OK. I come in here, and here I am prompted to sign in using my identifier first. And here I have one existing user, which is using username and password. I hit continue. I don't want to unlock one password. Go away. And I sign in with my username and password. And now, my device is clearly capable of FIDO. And so here I'm offered, want to do login faster with this device? And I say yes. And then I'm not sure why it's asking for the PIN instead of the face. But you know how this works. I hit OK. Fantastic. Now I have added my device, and my super complex app shows me my claim. Now, if I jump out of this, log out, and now I sign in again, this one must be one password. Again. And voila. So basically, I started from something that was only username and password. I just went in my settings and said, from now on, I want to use, if the device is capable, platform authenticator. And my user just enabled this with literally 3 clicks. And one of them I'm forced to do, thank you, because Apple added something in Safari in which if you don't click, the thing doesn't come out. Otherwise, I could have made it with 2 clicks. And when I say I mean the engineers. I'm shamelessly taking credit for work of others, which is classic. I do it all the time. All right, so just to wrap up, we deployed this in June. And in 3 months, like our developers, our customers, enabled it not in a huge amount of tenants, but it was significant. And in terms of numbers of logins using platform authenticators, this was a huge spike. You can see that it's significantly faster than the one that we have seen for our own platform. Again, we can speculate whether there is a causal link between all the insights that I listed and this, but it's hard to argue with numbers. So what's next? Next, we want to play with resident keys, because they are an awesome feature. And so we go there. And then we, of course, like everyone, want to get to full passwordless. But we want to make sure that our users and the users of our users can come with us on that journey instead of just guilting them into doing it. So same TLDR that we've seen at the beginning. We really want WebAuthn happen for the industry. We try to be concrete about it and actually try to pursue things that work and work with the world as it is rather than how we would like the world to be. And you have seen that at least we seem to have found a good low-hanging fruit, because technically it wasn't that hard to do it. It's just a matter of designing an experience which makes people tumble into the hole of success. If you want to dig deeper, we have a bit.ly link, which is a starting point with that feature. You find all the documentation. You can follow Auth0 on Twitter. Andres Aguilar is the real person behind all of these. I'm just a mouthpiece. So if you follow him on Twitter, whenever there is something new, you'll find it in there. And if you wanted to ask me a question, Twitter is better than email because email is a secret. No one knows that I'm not answering you. But in Twitter, you can shame me into answering you. So thank you.
Thank you, Vittorio. We have just a few minutes before the next session starts. Are there any questions? Mr. Letty. No, there are people online, so.
I can also repeat your question with Italian accent, but
I want to play
I
Phil
hope
Donahue.
people will. You don't want me to channel you?
I won't attempt an Italian accent.
All right.
I'll stick with Texan. So you talked all about WebAuthn. I don't think you said FIDO. Could you explain how you think about WebAuthn related to FIDO? There's a lot of FIDO fans in the audience.
Well, I spoke about WebAuthn mostly because I am more on the blue collar, although this is teal. And I actually look more on the implementation and feature side. So I operate at that layer. To me, like I might be misunderstanding the spirit, but for me, FIDO is more of like the initiative rather than the actual, I would say, low-level feature. So when I talk to developers usually ask me for WebAuthn because they think the API and similar, and so I try to meet them on their turf. So, and honestly, I usually hear the keyword FIDO every time we talk about like initiatives or like roadmaps or events or people or websites and similar, but not as much when the rubber hits the road. It might simply be a matter of terminology. And if you think that it would be more effective in using FIDO, if offline you tell me, I'm open to be convinced.
Yeah, I'll try and catch up with you in the next couple of days. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Actually, we don't have a lot of time. I got one I want to take online because people are up middle of the night watching some of this. So this is a fairly simple question. Who is the audience for the questions your presentation? Developers, end users, admins, CISOs?
The audience is developers by means of making their users happy. You have seen in the demo that we tried to give the experience for the developer to be as straightforward as possible. They might have never heard the word FIDO or WebAuthn. There it was identifier first plus biometric. We tried that. And then a lot of the things that I've shown is more of like the experience for the end user. My assumption is that developers want their end users to have a good experience. So you could say that it is also for end users in terms of audience, but end users don't have it really actionable, apart from if you get a prompt, say yes. But it's actually up to them, because like if they know better whether the device, they use it all the time. If they don't, I'd say that our aim is to give it to the developer as much flexibility as possible, but also to leave, of course, the user the choice.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vittorio. Thank him again. Sorry, no more time for questions, but for those who are here, physically present, I'm sure you can grab Vittorio actually after the next presentation where he will be participating again. So thank you, everyone. We got a couple minutes before the next session starts. I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Thank you.